One of the first videos I made on this channel was about the 4 founders of Hogwarts, and today it's one of the most viewed videos on the channel. It's safe to say that I've come a long way since then, and we've actually gotten more information on them since I made that original video. So I thought it was time to make an updated life of video for the 4 founders of Hogwarts. I'm gonna go over Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Salazar Slytherin, and Rowena Ravenclaw. Before we get into it though, I want to thank today's sponsor, Established Titles. This is such a cool company because they allowed me to have the same title as my favorite character in the Harry Potter series, Lord Voldemort. I am now Lord Morgan. How did I do it? I'm glad you asked. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or in English, lords and ladies. This company allows literally anyone to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land, and because you own that land, you automatically become an official lord or a lady. And something really cool, the first 200 people to use my link will get a plot right next to me, so you could say you're neighbors with Movie Flame. The certificate features a unique plot number, which allows you to see the exact location of your land. And this not only makes you look like a boss to your friends and family, but it also helps global reforestation efforts. Established Titles works with local charities like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, and they plant a tree with every single order. So clearly it's a fun way to help preserve the picturesque woodlands of Scotland. And you don't have to get it for yourself. I not only made myself a lord, but I got one for my fiance Kara, and she said it was one of the coolest and most unique gifts she's ever gotten. With this purchase, you can officially change your name, meaning you could put it on your credit card, your plane ticket, heck, you could even put it on your dating profile. What a conversation starter that would be. Established Titles is actually running a massive sale right now, plus if you use the code MOVIE10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/movie10 to become a lord or a lady today. Now that I've said that, let's get the video started. Our story starts in 990 AD, almost exactly 1,000 years before the Harry Potter books took place in 1991. Starting with Godric Gryffindor, he was an English wizard from a small wizarding town called Godric's Hollow, which at the time was not named as such, but would later be named after him. This town plays a huge part in the original series, because this was of course where Harry was born, and where Voldemort would eventually kill his mother and father. Godric was regarded as one of the most brilliant wizards of his time, and he was known for his bravery and skills as an accomplished dueler. While those were good things he was remembered for, there were also some bad things as well. This was due to his work with goblins, more specifically the king of the goblins at the time, Ragnarok I. Ragnarok forged Godric's famous sword, and Godric paid him handsomely for it. Ragnarok did a fantastic job forging the sword from pure goblin silver. However, by the time Ragnarok had finished the sword, he liked it so much that he wanted it for himself, but he knew he had to hand it over to Gryffindor. As time passed though, he regretted this, and later he sent a group of his goblin subjects to steal the sword back from Godric. They were no match for who I just said was a brave and powerful dueler, and Godric sent the group back with a message and threat for their goblin king. Ragnarok didn't dare mess with Gryffindor again, so instead he spread rumors that Godric had stolen the sword from the Goblin King, and rumors soon became history, which tarnished Gryffindor's reputation, especially in the eyes of goblins. If you remember, this is why Griphook felt entitled to the sword in the Deathly Hallows. He thought it had been stolen from his kind, and he wanted it back for his kind. Moving on to the next founder, we have Helga Hufflepuff, who the Sorting Hat said was from Valley Broad. She was a Welsh witch who came from Wales. Like Gryffindor, Helga was one of the most brilliant minds in the wizarding world at the time. She was known to be very kind, compassionate, and also very charming. And speaking of charm, the thing that she was most known for were her charms to do with food, a very rare and special branch of magic. Moving on to Salazar Slytherin, he was a pureblood wizard, and like Gryffindor and Hufflepuff, he was one of the most brilliant minds of his time. Are you seeing a pattern here? They're all very smart. Slytherin was a very skilled legilimens, meaning he could read people's minds, something that his descendant Tom Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort, would be a master of as well. Salazar was only the second wizard in history to have the ability to speak to snakes. He spoke the language Parseltongue, making him a parcel mouth, which only Herpo the Foul had been able to do before him. Salazar not only followed in Herpo's footsteps with Parseltongue, but also with his fascination in the creature's basilisks, which Herpo had actually discovered. He was the first to ever breed the creature. Slytherin would eventually make his own wand made of snake wood, and he made the core of the wand house a basilisk horn. He taught his wand the unique ability to sleep when commanded in Parseltongue, which would play a huge role in the origin story of the American wizarding school Ilvermorny, which I actually made a video on, and personally I think it's some of my best work. I'll link it down below so that you can watch it after you finish this video. And finally, we have Rowena Ravenclaw, a Scottish witch. Though the other three were brilliant, Rowena was even more brilliant, as she was known for her intelligence as well as her creativity. Rowena is the only one of the 4 founders to have a child, at least that we know of, and she eventually gave birth to her daughter Helena Ravenclaw. Leading up to the formation of Hogwarts, Godric and Salazar were best friends, and meanwhile Helga and Rowena were best friends. This was a time when witches and wizards were being found by suspicious muggles, which wasn't the Salem witch trials, but was another time in wizarding world history where muggles were suspicious of sorcery. Because of this, the 4 greatest minds at the time came together as the 2 pairs of best friends decided they should create a place where young witches and wizards could practice magic without being prosecuted. Shortly after making this decision, Rowena had a dream one night that a warty hog led her to a cliff by a lake, giving her both the location and the name for the school, turning the warty hog into Hogwarts. Together, they found this location in the Highlands of Scotland, and it was even more perfect than they had imagined. The 4 of them began to build the castle and created the magnificent school we've all grown to love. Around the castle was an extensive school grounds, which included sloping lawns, flower beds, vegetable patches, the Black Lake, a large and dense forest filled with many magical creatures, several greenhouses, and other outbuildings. The 4 founders made the school impossible to find, as it was unplottable. To muggles, the school appeared to be ruins of a fallen castle and several warning signs of danger, meaning those prosecuting witches and wizards wouldn't enter, and even if they did, the founders put all sorts of charms to keep them out. Rowena's brilliant mind came up with the floor plan for the school, which included the Great Hall, the different house common rooms, the moving staircases, the dungeons, the kitchens, and so much more. And speaking of the Hogwarts kitchens, that's where Helga Hufflepuff made her mark on the school. She used her charm skills to prepare magnificent feasts for the students and staff, and many of her recipes were still used during Harry's time at Hogwarts. She also arranged for the house elves to work in the kitchens, giving them somewhere safe to work where they would not be mistreated or abused, and this was something that carried on for the next 1,000 years as well, again during Harry's time. The school eventually opened, taking students from Great Britain and Scotland, and the first generation of students came to learn under the teachings of the most brilliant minds in the wizarding world at the time. 2 students that we know were part of this first generation were Rowena's daughter Helena and a student who would later be known as the Bloody Baron. The Ravenclaw mother and daughter struggled a bit and had a rocky relationship. Helena was resentful of her mother for being this wise, perfect figure to the wizarding world, and she felt she couldn't live up to the expectations everybody had for her. This made her resent her mother, but nonetheless, she kept her head down and worked hard in the newly formed school. The 4 founders decided to make their own houses of students, each one named after them. Gryffindor, whose logo was a lion, Hufflepuff, whose logo was a badger, Slytherin, whose logo was a snake, and Ravenclaw, whose logo was an eagle. And notice I said an eagle, not a raven. The movies changed this, and in my original video, I said an eagle, but showed the movie's version of the logo. The coat of arms that she chose was an eagle, which brought a lot of unnecessary hate towards me. Like, it was crazy. Calm down. It is not that serious.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
But I wanted to make sure I got it right this time. Ravenclaw's logo is an eagle, not a raven.
Lovely.
Though Slytherin was often looked down upon for only wanting a certain type of student, more specifically pureblood students, he actually wasn't the only one. Both Gryffindor and Ravenclaw were very picky as well. Godric wanted only the bravest and most daring students. Meanwhile, Rowena wanted only the most intelligent and wise students. This left the remaining students with Hufflepuff, who had vowed to teach the lot. She didn't judge students over others, no matter how much talent they had or what families they came from. She took all the students the other founders didn't want and welcomed them, and this led her to students who valued fair play and loyalty. The founders soon grew tired of handpicking their students every year, which was a long process as they would have to interview each new student, discuss with one another, and sort them accordingly, which took many hours. Before one school year, Godric said to hell with this, took off his hat, and he had the 4 of them jointly enchant the hat, giving it the power to sort students into the correct house in just seconds.
Gryffindor!
It became one of the cleverest enchanted objects most witches and wizards would ever see. It literally contained the intelligence of each founder, could speak, and was skilled at legilimency, the act of reading minds, which enabled it to look into the wearer's head and divine his or her capabilities or mood. The sorting hat ensured that there would be a way to sort students even after the 4 founders were gone, and as we see, even 1,000 years later, it's still doing its job. Each founder eventually created a relic for themselves, which would be dubbed the Hogwarts relics. Gryffindor already had his, which was of course the sword that we already went over. His sword was actually what inspired the other 3 founders to get their own relic. Slytherin got the locket, which was passed down in his family for many generations, and which would later be made into a Horcrux by his descendant Lord Voldemort. Hufflepuff got the golden cup, which would also be turned into a Horcrux by the Dark Lord. And finally, Rowena would create a diadem, which was said to enhance the wisdom of its wearer, and it too was made into a Horcrux by Voldemort. So yeah, Voldemort got his hands on 3 of the 4 relics and defiled them with dark magic.
I know what he's done! I know who he is! He defiled it with dark magic!
And funnily enough, the 4th relic was one of the few things that could destroy the others. After a few years of a peaceful start to the school, Salazar Slytherin began to grow distrusting of the Muggle families they were taking Muggle-born students from, and he decided he did not want any more mudbloods. When he voiced this to the other founders, they refused to hear him out. The other 3 believed that they should allow all students to come to Hogwarts no matter what their blood purity was. This made Slytherin furious, and a huge argument broke out between himself and his best friend Godric, which might have even led to a duel. Ultimately, Gryffindor came out on top, and whether that was through his words or by force, we don't know. But what we do know is that Slytherin left the school after that. Before he fully left, however, Slytherin had a master plan that would make the other founders regret letting Muggleborns into their school. Salazar built a chamber underneath the castle, and he bred a basilisk, the creature he was so fascinated with, and hid it in the chamber, which would later be dubbed the Chamber of Secrets. Just like his wand that he could put to sleep, he used the same technique on the basilisk so it wouldn't age, and then one day when his heir came to the school, he would wake it up and release the beast to kill the Muggleborns. This of course didn't happen until 1942 when his descendant and heir Tom Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort, opened the chamber, and this led to the death of one Muggleborn student named Myrtle, which granted was not the body count Slytherin had hoped for with only 1 death, but it was still something nonetheless. The 3 founders continued to run the school without Slytherin, and they saw some amazing years and churned out some incredible witches and wizards. Rowena eventually grew ill, however, and she began to die. As I mentioned earlier, Rowena's daughter Helena grew jealous of her mother, and this eventually led to her stealing Rowena's Hogwarts relic, the diadem that made the wearer wiser. She ran away with it, a fact that Rowena kept hidden from her fellow founders, and desperate to see her daughter one last time, she sent a man to bring Helena home, a former student of Rowena's and a classmate of Helena's, the Bloody Baron. He was head over heels in love with Helena, and while retrieving her, he stabbed and killed her when she refused to come with him. Not knowing what to do, he then stabbed himself, and the 2 became ghosts at Hogwarts for the rest of time. Hearing of her daughter's death, Rowena died of a broken heart, never being able to reconcile with her daughter. She was the first of the founders to die, and the rest would later die of old age, each living out a fulfilled and productive life. Gryffindor would always be remembered for his fight against Muggle discrimination, which put him years ahead of his time. There was a portrait of Gryffindor in the Hogwarts castle, which actually guarded a secret shortcut between the 7th floor landing and the grand staircase and entrance hall. Gryffindor left behind 2 relics, the Sorting Hat and the Sword of Gryffindor, and because they were both connected to him, it made the 2 objects share a bond. So whenever a true Gryffindor needed it, the sword would let itself be pulled out of the Sorting Hat, which we of course saw happen with both Harry Potter and Neville Longbottom. Helga Hufflepuff was remembered by her students perhaps more than any of the other founders because there was a constant reminder of her in the Hufflepuff common room. There she was depicted in a portrait where she was toasting every generation of her students, proudly holding up her golden cup, aka her Hogwarts relic. That relic would be passed down in her family for generations, eventually reaching Helga's descendant Hepzibah Smith, who was unfortunately killed by her former friend's descendant Tom Riddle, which he did to steal that very cup. Slytherin had a portrait in the castle as well, which, like Gryffindor's portrait, guarded a secret passageway. As I mentioned earlier, Slytherin's wand played a huge part in the origin story of Ilvermorny, the American wizarding school, and the wand that he made would eventually be buried outside of the school, and from it, a snakewood tree was born, snakewood of course being what the wand was made of, and the tree grew leaves that had restorative powers. Rowena would always be remembered for her great intelligence, and she too had a portrait in the castle. Fittingly, her portrait told students about the origin of Hogwarts and the 4 founders straight from one of the 4 founders themselves. These 4 witches and wizards created a legacy that would live on for so many years after they were gone. Because of them, they shaped the mind of some of the greatest witches and wizards to ever live, and they helped establish the wizarding world that we've all come to love. And there it is, the life of the 4 founders. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to help with the algorithm. I would really appreciate it. But that's all I have for you guys today, so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes movie flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great movie flame videos on the way.